What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining me here. I am RJ, your host here at Twin Halos. So we got a good episode for you if you're getting started with the motocross training. But before we get into that, I want to talk about how this weekend in Supercross was ridiculous. This weekend in New Jersey was like watching a damn circus. Everybody was falling, crashing, riding the opposite way in the whoops. People were getting stuck in the back tire. It was an insane weekend for Supercross, to say the least. So between Dungey and Tomac, I think we're set up for a good race. I don't know what the outcome is going to be. It's so hard to predict anything in Supercross. Nobody knew or could predict Tomac falling as early in the race as he did, which sucked. Which I was hoping for a really good race, and that unfortunately did not happen. So I think Vegas is going to be a pretty good race, not only in the 450 class, but also in the 250 class. So that's going to be extremely interesting to watch. Now, there's so many comments that I've read online all over, and so many people were talking about this, and it's the old shake and bake. So the question of the day is, did Pepe Le Pew pull over, and if so, are you mad? Now, that's hard with Supercross because it's an individual sport, yet there's teams that have more than one rider, or a few teams. And, that's frustrating, I know, for some people, because they're talking about how Dungey should earn the win this past weekend, but I don't know. There was a good question asked, if Marvin was in the position for to get the title, would Dungey do the same for him? I don't know. What would you, as Marvin, what would you want Dungey to do? Like if the roles were reversed, and I don't know. But we'll see how important that the 3 points that he gained from passing Marvin, if that helps, if it's even a difference come Saturday in Vegas. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't control any of that stuff. I try not to get too emotionally involved and start hating on everybody. But I don't know. Well, speaking of hating, I didn't like that Grant took out Stewart in the freaking heat race. That frustrated me. So I don't know what the heck that was about. Anyway. Oh, and then Savachi, he had fallen off of the track and then didn't get back on where he exited the track. And I guess they had fined him, or not fined, but they penalized him, which I thought sucked. So, yeah, this weekend was nuts. Anyway, let's get into today's topic. We are talking about getting started with motocross training. And the biggest thing that I see that some people lack, and I get the most friction, is when I say, as a motocross rider, you got to put on some muscle. Immediately people think when I say that is, I've got to put on mass. And that's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying you do have to put on some muscle size. This does not mean that you're going to gain 30 pounds way down the bike, have to change out your suspension, and then find whatever power mods that you need for your bike just to fit you. That's not what I'm saying. So when we're talking about fitness for motocross, when I say building muscle, we've got to build a solid foundation for your body to start strength training without injury. So if you have to do any type of cardio, whether that's running, biking, swimming, anything like that, I've got to make sure that your body is prepped for these things. So that's usually my first phase of training, is building muscle, creating flexibility. That way we avoid pain and we create longevity for the rider long term. That's ultimately what I want. I don't want somebody just to ride 5 years, 7 years, and then just completely destroy their body and they don't know how to take care of it. What's his name? Davey Millsaps, he's got some issues going on with his wrists. I don't know from what. I think he crashed and he's got some wrist issues, and I think he's going to have surgery. But this is why I teach soft tissue techniques That way, every rider that comes through my programs, they know and understand how to take care of their body. I think that's one of the things that's missing in the sport is how do we take care of these athletes? And there's so many races per year. And there's talk of adding more races, which I think is ridiculous because the sport is already demanding and there's so many races. There's hardly any time. And I think there's one weekend in between Supercross and outdoors that is insane, especially for how much the body just takes a beating on the track. I think that's one of the most overlooked things is longevity. So within my first phase of training is not only to build muscle, we're building flexibility, and then we're doing soft tissue work. So that is how I start to train somebody. On top of that, yes, we do cardio. And the way we do that is through steady state cardio first. Because if I have you do any kind of sprints, if your body's not set up for it, you're going to kill your low back, your hips. You're just going to mess things up. So with steady state cardio, we're not doing anything. We're just staying there in a certain heart rate zone, and then we're moving on into the next phase of training. So I don't just throw everything at somebody and try to make them as best as they can be in just 6 weeks. I've got to take you through these things, through these steps rather, in order to create longevity. I'm going to say that so many times because you've got to ride pain-free. That way, that's not on your mind when you're riding. You're able to make better decisions when you're as healthy as possible. So that's always my goal with training any motocross athlete. So moving on to the next phase of training, the way, actually let's stick with building muscle. So with building muscle, your rep range is going to be medium, maybe 8 to 10 reps. You're just conditioning the body. You're getting sending signals to the body that you need muscle to grow. You're getting the tendons and the connective tissue called fascia. You're getting those to become more elastic. You're getting more flexibility out of these tissues. And that's all the prep, and that's everything. That's the whole purpose behind that first phase. So if you're going to start working out and using weights, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to use that certain rep range and work on flexibility. So the next phase of training after that is strength training. So if you watched the race this weekend, you saw when Eli Tomac fell, he had to lift the bike up the berm. So that's the whole bike weighing on top of him, and he had to do basically a deadlift into he had to do a deadlift into a full press in order to get the bike back up. And that's why deadlifts are such a good exercise as well as front squats. So if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, you saw or you've seen 2 exercises. There's a video that has 2 exercises for your legs, and front squats are one of them, as well as the deadlift. But this is why you have to strength train as a motocross athlete, because if you fall and you're tired, now you have to pick that bike up. If you don't have that strength, just lifting the bike is going to kill you. Because with strength training, there's so much cardio involved, and you're not necessarily running laps or doing anything that people would assume is cardio. But when it comes to strength training, you're definitely going to get your heart pumping. You're doing very low reps with higher amounts of weight, and that's going to also increase your cardio. So with weight training, this is another form of, with strength training, I should say, that more specifically, we're just focused on one form of adaptation for the body to become adapted to, and that's through strength. Yes, you are going to get your cardio increased as well. And then on the days off from strength training, you're going to start doing more cardio just like you would in the conditioning phase and the muscle building phase. So don't be afraid to lift heavier weights, but we do this for a short amount of time. All of these are phases of training. These are not something to do long term. You don't train like a damn power lifter for motocross. So when I say we're working in these phases, we're going in and out of them. We're not staying there very long, and we're not trying to build tons of muscle in each phase. So a lot of people think, oh, with motocross, I need just endurance. No, you need all of these things. That way you're a well-rounded athlete on and off the track, and especially on the bike. So that's why I do strength training right after muscle building, because now we've built some muscle. Now let's put in some strength. Then that's when we move into the phase of training of muscle endurance. This is where we're going to start to build higher reps. You're going to start to build more, let's say, I guess shredded is the better visual aspect for this. You're going to build, more specifically, what I want you to focus on is the pump. You're going to start feeling that pump, just like a lot of bodybuilders start chasing. This is where you're going to start feeling, dang, my skin is really, really tight as I work out, because you're going in these higher rep ranges. You're feeling the muscles with a lot more blood. And to get a little sciencey, I'm not going to talk over your head, but this is going to increase mitochondrial density. Now, I know I said I'm not going to talk over your head. So mitochondria is what transfers your nutrients from food into energy. You want more of these. That way your body becomes more efficient in providing you energy from the foods that you eat. So that's why you put this phase of training into your program. This helps with a lot of endurance. This is a huge thing that you want to do. And I guess there have been studies. I haven't looked into this enough to have confirmed this, but they said that with trying to increase the amount of mitochondria in the body, you can actually double it if you're doing high intensity interval training, which will be my next program outside of Iron Foundation. So my program, Iron Foundation, has all three of these phases worked into it, as well as the flexibility, as well as cardio, and everything that I just talked about. So that next phase of training after this would be weighted endurance, which, like I said, it's going to be my next program. I just keep rereading my notes here. Now, with high intensity interval training, the reason why I don't start people strictly just on that is because you've got to make sure that your body is posturally correct in order to do these things without injury. There's so many people that start immediately running and they have low back issues, they've got hip issues that need to be addressed, and all of that is addressed in the first phase of training. If I don't address that before we get into anything else, I'm only going to ensure that you keep these bad motor patterns and bad postural positions. And that's why we got to focus on posture, creating some muscle, build strength with that new muscle, and then we introduce endurance training after we've done those two phases of training. So that's how I train my athletes. That's how I train the first part of their training. Now, if an athlete has been doing this multiple times or has already been working out this way, then that's when I'm going to get them on my new program, which is coming out very soon, which is called Weighted Endurance. This is going to help you increase your endurance with doing less work. This is how we use interval training, and then we also will implement some zone training. So you might need you will need a heart rate monitor for these workouts. So this is how I train my athletes to get into motocross. This is how I start everybody. And that program is on twinhalos.com. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know at twinhalos, actually not at, twinhalos@gmail.com. You can ask me whatever you want. You could ask me on my Instagram. You could ask me on here on YouTube if you're watching this video. If you're on the podcast, you can ask on those social media sites as well as Facebook. And if you are listening on iTunes, if you would be so kindly and leave a 5-star review on iTunes this week, only this week. If you leave a 5-star review, I will give somebody this free program, the Iron Foundation program. It's 3 months of training, 3 months of phased training. So this week I'm giving away one program. So if you leave a 5-star review, I'm going to pick somebody and I'll send you a free program. So that's what I'm doing. I kept this podcast short because I didn't know what else I want to talk about. And if you have questions, let me know. I'm going to post something on Instagram. I'm going to post a podcast photo. If you have questions, post them there. That way I can line up next week's show and answer your questions, whatever it may be. So subscribe to the YouTube channel because there's a lot of tutorials, exercise tutorials that I put out. I try to put out as much as possible every week. Subscribe to the podcast. That way you get these and you're notified when you get a new podcast, so you can listen to it on your way to work, if that's when you listen to a podcast. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you found this somewhat informative. I know it was quick, but I didn't want to waste a lot of time because I want you guys to ask the questions, because I want to focus more on you. What questions do you guys have? That way I can answer them here. So I just want to introduce, here's this way of training. Here's my phased workouts. This is what I do when I train motocross athletes. So that's it for me. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for listening. This is Twin Halos podcast, where we improve motocross fitness. Thank you so much. You can find the programs that I was talking about at twinhalos.com. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. See you guys later.